16 years passed while I learned how to stand alone without leaning on anyone. I did not choose this life, but it was imposed on me the day Salma's father walked out of our lives, leaving behind a small child and a woman who could no longer afford to break. From that moment on, I understood that my back had to be strong enough for both of us, and that any crack in me would reach her before it reached me. Salma grew before my eyes slowly, like a quiet miracle. She was a gentle child, inclined to silence, looking at the world with innocent trust, as if cruelty were a rare exception. I feared for her, not from people alone, but from her own kindness. The world does not spare open hearts, and I knew that well. I worked relentlessly. I started with almost nothing: a tiny kitchen, limited tools, long nights kneading dough, testing recipes, failing, then trying again. I worked while Salma slept, hid my exhaustion from her, and pretended strength even when my legs trembled. Little by little, our name became known. The pastry business grew, not just as income, but as proof that a woman on her own could build something respectable without holding out her hand to anyone. When Yusuf proposed to Salma, I felt a cautious happiness. He was polite, articulate, knew exactly how to say the right words, yet there was something in his eyes that always calculated. I ignored my instinct, telling myself that mothers often exaggerate and that my daughter deserved to live her love story herself. Salma was happy, and I believed that her happiness was enough. Months passed and the wedding day approached. I spent what I had saved penny by penny, not out of vanity, but to give Salma a day where she would never feel less than anyone else. I booked an elegant hall, chose white and gold, quiet, refined colors that suited her. During that time, I watched Yusuf closely, his sudden interest in the business, his many questions, his suggestions disguised as advice. I noticed everything, and I stayed silent. On the morning of the wedding, I woke before everyone else. I sat alone for a while, breathing deeply. There was a strange heaviness in my chest, one that felt like responsibility more than fear. It was nearly 10 o'clock when the maid of honor finished adjusting Salma's dress. My daughter sat before the mirror, her eyes glowing with genuine joy, her smile trembling with excitement. In her reflection, I saw the child I once carried, and the woman who would leave me in a few hours. She called out to me softly and asked if I could bring her bouquet from Yusuf's room. I smiled and told her I would. I left her room and walked slowly down the hotel corridor, straightening my dress, breathing in the scent of flowers. Downstairs, the hall was ready, the music being tested, guests beginning to arrive. I believed everything was unfolding as it should. I went up to the floor where Yusuf and his friends were staying. The door to the room was half open, laughter spilling out loudly and without restraint. I raised my hand to knock, but his voice reached me first. It was clear, mocking, stripped of all decency. He was talking about a few remaining hours, about contracts, about placing his hand on the business, about recovering old losses. Then he said it simply, cruelly, that the marriage was a small price to pay. I froze. A cold sensation spread through my limbs. I leaned against the wall so I would not fall. I heard their laughter, one of them joking, and Yusuf replying without hesitation about Salma's naivety, about how easy she was to deceive, about how 1 year would be enough to sell everything. In that moment, I did not cry or scream. Something inside me shattered forever, and something else hardened in its place. Calmly, I took out my phone and recorded everything. I wanted the truth, whole, unaltered. Then I stepped away quietly and returned to Salma's room. She was smiling, unaware that her world was about to collapse. When she saw my face, she asked if I was all right. I smiled a smile that did not belong to me and told her I was fine. When she put on the dress, she looked like light itself, beautiful in a way that hurt. I stood there watching her, memorizing her, as if engraving her image in my heart before life changed irrevocably. Minutes before the procession, I went down alone to the hall. I took the microphone. The room fell silent. Curious glances, irritated looks, and his confident stare. I spoke calmly, like a woman who had decided not to retreat. I said that marriage was not a deal, not a transaction, not a way to claim the labor of years. Then I played the recording. I let his own voice expose him. I let the words fall as they were. When I announced the wedding was canceled, a heavy silence settled over the room. I heard nothing but my own heartbeat. I went upstairs to Salma and held her tightly. She cried, and I cried with her. I told her that anyone who saw her as a bargain did not deserve her, and that God had saved her before she stepped into a life whose price would have been her dignity. These tears were tears of rescue, not defeat. The days that followed were heavy at first. People talked, as they always do. Some blamed me, some took pleasure in it, and only a few truly understood. Yusuf tried to return. He sent intermediaries, spoke of reason, reputation, missed opportunities. No one spoke of respect. I ignored them all. Salma withdrew for a while. She did not cry much, but she grew quiet. I watched her from a distance and gave her space. I knew that betrayal does not heal with advice. Weeks later, she sat across from me and said she wanted to begin something new. She enrolled in a photography course and began seeing the world through a lens. Once she told me she felt in control when she captured an image. I understood. The business grew even more, as if life were compensating us. We grew too. About a year later, we saw him by chance on the street. He looked different, less confident, more worn down. He glanced at us, then looked away. I felt nothing. No anger, no triumph, only emptiness. That was when I realized that true healing is indifference. Today, Salma is a stronger woman, not unscarred, but fully aware of her worth. And I am no longer afraid as I once was. I learned that motherhood is not only protection, but the courage to make a decision when the cost is high. That day, the one people called a scandal, was in truth a beginning, the beginning of two women who decided never to be a bargain in anyone's life.